This is Company Profiles with me, Emma Redman, and today I'm with Linda Travella from Casa Travella. So Linda, tell us, when did Casa Travella start to operate?
A long time ago, actually 1987.
Wow, long time ago.
A very long time ago.
How did it start?
Well, it started off really with us going to Italy and actually seeing a wonderful development. And my husband thinking that I would be able to do quite a good job of promoting the area and forming a company, something that I'd been involved in before in my parents' business. And the fact that I actually love Italy, loved at the time Lake Como is where we started, and that's really how it started off. And nobody else was actually doing, there were no other companies at that time selling anywhere really apart from Tuscany, and I think that's a very important point.
So how has it evolved over the years then? Has it grown with regards to the team and grown with regards to the area that you're now selling?
Absolutely, Emma, certainly has. We started off just on Lake Como, and then my husband had a cousin in Liguria, which is the area from the south of France, from Nice going towards Genoa. And I used to go down and talk to associate offices and interview people to see if I've got very high standards about who works with Casa Travella. So I want someone that's going to be professional like we are. So it was very important for me to do that. So we started off then with Liguria, and then we started on Lake Maggiore. And so it's grown really slowly over the years, rather than trying to do everything very quickly. Initially it was just myself and my husband. Right. And my husband was more on the technical side. He wouldn't be in the office or answering the telephone. He's on the technical side. He's trained technically, so he would go perhaps with clients if clients were wanting to do restoration. We had a client wanting to do restoration on an old palazzo, and so he would go out with the client and give advice and translate and interpret whatever was required with that client.
Now, you've got a background in law, you've also got a background in sales as well. Obviously with your husband being Italian, he knows the area, he knows the ins and outs, obviously knowing the language like you do now as well. How important is it to kind of have that kind of family business and support, and obviously having the kind of experience that your husband does have, you know, being Italian?
It's very important actually, Emma, because he can understand initially, obviously at the outset, you have to be able to understand the Italian culture and the Italian way of life. And the best way to do that is get an Italian husband. That's what I say. So that's what I did. And he's able to help me, certainly at the beginning. But since then, I have taken on the Italian way of life and lifestyle, to be honest, in my own way. And in fact, I'm even told I have an accent, a Milanese accent. So that's because Lake Como is close to Milan. Yeah. But I think the other thing is we have encompassed lots of other areas. So whereas Lake Como, Lake Maggiore, Liguria, and we've branched out to the south of Italy. We in fact launched an area called Basilicata about 10 years ago now, right. An area in the south of Italy that certainly wasn't on anybody's radar. And I started doing that when I was actually filming I Want That House with Mark Simpkins. Right. So that was a start for that, and a completely different type of property actually from perhaps the northern and central part of Italy. I mean, I sell in Tuscany, where you have completely different types of landscape as well. So you've got very, very different areas. And I think the thing is about Casa Travella, we can offer you independent advice. Because we sell almost all over Italy, we're not going to say, well, you should buy here or you've got to buy there. We look at the client's needs and we look at their budget, and we try and ask them what they're looking for, what they expect in a property. Yeah. You know, you say to me, oh, well, I want something that's suitable for a child, or we need a pool, or whatever. Yeah. And we try and fit the budget and the area to their lifestyle.
And it's good to have someone like Casa Travella, because there's a misconception that, well, buying a house in the UK, it's the same as buying a house abroad, but it isn't, is there? There's different policies and procedures in the way it works.
Absolutely, that's a very important point, and it's not more complicated, but it seems it because it's different.
Yes, cool.
And another thing that Casa Travella can do is we can recommend the professionals that will help you. So that could be the lawyer, the currency broker, the surveyor, the architect, kitchen planners, absolutely everybody from A to Z. And this often continues after purchase, to be honest. I mean, I get clients phoning me up and saying, can you get me tickets to La Scala? I mean, it's unbelievable.
Well, that's important as well. It's a family-run business, and you do pride yourselves on being, a very personal service, and you're there at the end of the phone as and when, and you kind of do a kind of post-buying service as well, don't you? You do have offices in the area that if any of your clients do have issues, they can just pick up the phone.
Well, I think that's an important point. We deal with 18 to 20 associate offices in Italy, all over Italy. So once someone's bought a property from us, they can always phone us, obviously.
Yeah.
But if they've, at the beginning, when they've got to change over their electrics or do those small things that are very important at the outset, then our associate office will help them. So they will do all those little things, and that's why I'm it's very important for me to make sure I'm working with the right people. And if anybody does have issues when they're in Italy with my associates, then I want to know about it because I want to put it right. I really want to be professional and try and make people feel relaxed and happy about the Italian lifestyle, really.
Yeah, of course. Have you noticed an increase in the interest of buying properties in Italy over the years, since you've been doing this?
Absolutely. When I first started doing it, really the areas weren't known. And the people started to discover they could actually buy in Liguria, they could buy in other areas, Le Marche, for example. And of course, the opening up of various airlines and airports and the cost of fares, of course, have made a massive difference as well.
Yeah,
we have to sort of think about that too. People can travel very easily, and of course, remote working. You can take your iPad or your computer and you can work from you can get your house in Italy, Emma, and just work from there.
That's fine. I'm sure you can do me a good deal. What are your goals for Casa Travella over the next few years?
I think for the next few years, we want to look at what people are trying to do. Now, you have a lot more people now that are perhaps want to invest in a property. Want to invest only for that. They don't want to use the property. So we want to perhaps try and focus on areas where we can find an investment for them that will rise. Generally speaking, to be honest, it's much better if you can keep a property for 5 years, because if you keep it for 5 years, one, it's more likely to gain in value, and two, there's no capital gains tax in Italy. So from that point of view, I advise clients, if they're asking me, to keep the property if they can for 5 years.
Yeah.
So we also want to take on much more the new technology that's around, the apps and all the different sorts of things that you can get now that years ago weren't. I mean, I've noticed a really big difference. For example, nowadays everyone emails. Phone calls, before we were inundated with phone calls.
Yeah.
Now, actually, people very rarely phone.
Yeah.
And in fact, you have to sort of say to clients, well, actually, it's really good because it's great to have a chat on the phone.
Yeah.
Because you get much more idea of what a client actually wants and how we can help them best. And sometimes clients don't have the right idea for the sort of property, the sort of budget and the sort of property they want. They want a property on the beach, in Liguria for 50,000 euros. Well, it isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So you need to get that sort of information over. And I'd like to think that we would be able to also look very closely at the property portals, what's working, what isn't working, because with all the new technology, what happens is more and more things come onto the market, and you have to be able to sit there and sift through them and see what is working for Casa Travella.
Yes.
And what's right, not just take on everything,
With regards to sort of coming to you initially, if I wanted to buy a place in Italy,
Yep.
what would be the first thing that you would say to me if I said to you, right, Linda, I'd like to buy a property in Italy, what's the next step?
I'd say what's your budget, I think.
Okay.
Because realistically, however much you don't like to say it, realistically the budget is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Once you told me your budget, then I would say, now, what are you expecting from the property in Italy? And you would tell me whether you were expecting, do you want to rent it out? For example, lots of people, the most common thing is for people to buy a property to rent out and use for personal use.
Right.
Okay, so if you say to me, well, I want to rent this just a little bit, that's fine, doesn't matter. You want to say to me, actually, Linda, I want to rent this out for, 20 weeks a year.
Yes.
Then I'm going to give you different advice,
I
from
see.
if you're just going to use it for yourself.
Yes.
So ease of travel, all sorts of things come in. So they're the first two things I'd say, what you're going to do with it and what's your budget.
Right.
Once you've told me those two things, I'm going to say to you, how often are you going to use it? You know, if you're a young professional, you're working in the city or whatever, you might not be very free to travel. So, or you might be wanting to spend 3 months of the year out there. How often you're going to use it, very important point. And what is your perception of life in Italy? That's, you know, that's something else. If your perception of life in Italy is a rural retreat in the middle of nowhere, or is it something on the beach, or do you want a sea view or a lake view? And very, very importantly, do you want a pool? A private pool or a shared pool?
So you really get to know your client then, and what they want from it and what they want to gain from living out there.
Absolutely. That is what I think what Casa Travella can offer is that personal service. We try and respond very speedily to emails and queries. We've got a commitment to our client. And even if a client hasn't bought from us, we do get lots of inquiries from clients that haven't bought, that want, I don't know, insurance or a lawyer. And we will try, we can't put them as priority, but we do try and help them too.
Yeah, of course. You really do seem to have everything covered. Well, thanks for your time today. Thanks for joining us, and hopefully I'll be catching the next flight out there.
No problem. Thank you very much, Emma.
That was Company Profiles with me, Emma Redburn, and Linda Travella from Casa Travella.